Welcome back everyone to the Hello World Guy. This is another episode of the C programming series, and in this video we are going to make a simple calculator program and also learn a bunch of new things along the way as we do that. So I have opened an empty main function for this, and we are going to start adding our code here. The first line of code we are going to add is going to be this. So in here we by the way, in all the videos we have covered, we have only been using integer variables for representing numbers, but today we are going to learn a new type of variable, which is character. The name is pretty obvious. It represents a single character, like a single letter or a single punctuation mark or a single like number or anything that's like just one letter. So yeah, it is just a single character, and we are going to call it operator because our math symbols are going to be represented by single letters like plus, minus, multiply or divide or anything. So we are going to make a character called operator here, and then I'm going to create two more variables called x and y, which are going to be integers. These are going to be the actual values that we are going to be using. For y I'm going to set that to 0, and x as well. It's a good idea to initialize everything. And let's go ahead and print something like enter a statement for the user to know what he needs to do. Now let's use scanf, and for this we need to use, of course, D for reading a number and C for reading a character. So in the order we do this, it will first read a number, then it will read the operator, and then it will read the final number, which will make it look like a more natural way. So the user can write 7 plus 6 and it will read that correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and of course put the variables here, and do not forget the and sign, and x and operator and y. So I'm going to now go ahead and yeah, so this is basically going to get everything ready in our variables, and now we can do whatever output we need to do on this. So we are going to use the if else statements we learnt about in the previous video for this purpose. So we are going to say if our operator is equal to, and remember you need to put two equal signs here, if our operator is equal to plus, let's say, then that I have actually created a result integer here, as you can see, and we are going to go ahead and say result is equal to x plus y. And since this is a single statement, we can actually remove these because it's not necessary. We can now implement all of the other operators using else if. So if the operator is minus, we will say result is equal to x minus y, and similarly for all of the other ones, so including divide and everything. So that's pretty much it. But if none of this works, then we are going to add an else here, and we are actually going to put curly braces here because this is going to be multiple lines. The first line we are going to tell the user what happens by saying something like error invalid operator, and then we are going to return. What return does is that it essentially stops whatever function we are in right now, and remember that we are in the main function, so this will essentially stop the main function right now, because if we do not get the correct result, then we do not want to output the correct result. So in order to do that, we will say return, and after return you need to provide it with a return value, and a return value is basically a way of telling the operating system and user whether the program worked correctly or not. And if the return value is 0, then it means it worked, and if it is 1, it means it did not work. So I'm going to say return 1 here. If actually any other value, then 0 means failure. So that's awesome. And if it did work, then we are going to say printf, and we are going to like do this so that we basically re-output the user's equation with spaces in between, and we add an extra integer decimal at the end so that we can output the result as well. So yeah, this is pretty much all we need, and one more thing we need to do is of course add a new line after this, and this is pretty much all we need, and this program should actually work as a very basic calculator. So now let's try running and testing it. So if I open up the terminal and I use gcc to compile it by saying gcc hello.c, and it should not give any errors hopefully, and if I run a.exe, you can see it asks me to enter a statement. I can say something like 6 plus 9, and the spaces here don't really matter, and it gives an error saying that the operator was invalid. Now if I actually like don't add any spaces in here, then it works. So yeah, the scanf function is not very good at spaces. You might be wondering why that happened. Usually it does not happen that way. The only reason it happened this time was because this is a character, and like a space can be a character. So the space we had here, it actually read that instead of like reading this. So as long as the user does not put any spaces in their code, then this is going to work correctly. So yeah, this is pretty awesome, but you will easily see a problem when you run. So if I actually go ahead and say 3 multiply 3, you can see it works correctly. But if I try to say 3 divided by 2, it says okay, sorry, I added spaces here, we are not supposed to do that. And you can see it says that it is equal to 1, even though it is not. It is equal to something like 1 point something. So this is not supposed to be the way that we are that this is supposed to be outputting. The reason it's doing that, to fix it, we can go under our like program, and this is an integer, which means it does not actually store any actual point value. So it only stores like whole numbers and cannot store like anything after the decimal point. If you want to store that, we can use something called a float. A float is basically a number that has floating point values. It's a floating point value, which means that you can actually do better math with it. So we can go ahead and change our result and our operators to float. And if I go ahead and recompile it and then run it again like that, and if I now go ahead and say 3 by 2, you can see it actually, okay, that went wrong. The reason it did is because we cannot actually use D here right now. Since we have got that, we need to use something like F. So F like that, and we need to do that here. If you're using a float, you need to say F instead of D for integers. So if I do that and I run it like that, and I say something like 3 by 2, you can see it says 3 by 2 is equal to 1.5. And if I say something like 2 by 3, it's okay, actually let me, that wasn't that was PowerShell, not the program. So if I run the program and say 2 by 3, you can see it says 2 by 3 is equal to 0.667 whatever. So you can see our program is basically working, and this is pretty much it for this video. In the next video, we are going to learn about a couple of more control flow things, like we are going to learn about loops and switch statements and a lot of other stuff that are very necessary for not only C but any language. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Make sure to like and subscribe and share this video with other people, and I will see you in the next one, and bye.